to work together.
Hi, Jeff, can you hear us?
Live.
Okay. Good evening, Ketchikan. Welcome, Landslide Awareness and Safety Panel debriefing. Good evening. I'm Rick Hines. I'm the City Fire Chief and part of the Unified Command for this incident. Beside me, I have Steve Radine, who's the Fire Chief of South Tongass Fire Department and the Emergency Manager for the borough. He's also part of the Unified Command. The third part of the command structure is City Manager Delilah Walsh. Unfortunately, she is in another meeting at this hour. Thank you guys for tuning into our Landslide Awareness and Safety Panel. We are fully aware and that our community has been through a this week with the 3rd Avenue landslide, and we did suffer a terrible loss with the death of Sean Griffin. We'd like to just take a brief second to extend our deepest condolences to his family. Our panelists this evening are Aaron Jacobs from NOAA National Weather Service, Nicole Farron from NOAA National Weather Service, Travis Eckhoff from Alaska Department of Transportation, Martin Mort Larson from Alaska DNR, Lenita Copeland from the state EOC, and Rodney Dial from the Alaska State Defense Force. Tonight's session is an opportunity to provide information to our citizens on landslide awareness and safety. As you can tell, we probably have some of the foremost experts in this room in dealing with these type of incidents. Tonight's session will be moderated by the Public Information Officer, Casey Paxton.
Okay, thank you. I think that we'll start off talking about the weather, which is the factor that everyone is thinking about, asking about. So we'll start with our NOAA and National Weather Service experts. Aaron Jacobs is the Senior Service Hydrologist and Meteorologist. Nicole Farron is the Warning Coordination Meteorologist. We solicited questions from our community through an online survey, and we received a lot of questions about the weather. And so what we did was we compiled those into some categories. So I'll start with the first question. It didn't seem like the rain last Sunday was more than our usual amount. Can you give us an overview of the weather before the slide?
Yeah, thank you for that question. See on the screen here in a second. We did have a wide range of precipitation amounts that did fall across the region. And it was mainly from a fairly strong and it came across the region. And as you can see, these lines on the screen on the right, those are storm total rain amounts that were reported at the Ketchikan Airport, the Bailey Powerhouse Station, the Ketchikan Powerhouse along Ketchikan Creek, and then one up at, the Silvis Powerhouse. And you will see a large variety or variation of precipitation amounts. Lowest at the Ketchikan Airport, just over 2 inches, to as high as almost 10.5 inches over by the Silvis Powerhouse. We are still evaluating some of these values to see how accurate these are, but we have seen these higher amounts in the mountains in the past. And to put into context, on that day, the Ketchikan Airport record for that day came from 1961, and it was almost 8 inches of rain. So the air inches to about like 6.5 inches at sea level, with again almost 10 inches at higher elevation. So we've seen these rain as Ketchikan. You're aware we can definitely take a lot more precipitation, and so we're looking to see how the rainfall hit. One thing that came into it was the lack of precipitation over the year. And again, on the slide here on the bottom, the airport has only received about less than an inch leading up to this event. And so that was almost over 7 inches of rain below for August. But overall for the year, we're almost 25 inches below normal. So we're looking to further in to see if that's playing into any of the reasons for this horrible event. And you can see that we did that we're meeting a storm prediction. So this event is looking to improve our future predictions and understanding how we can improve our forecasts in the future.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned a little bit about dry weather. We did have a lot of warm, dry weather prior to the rain last week? How do those patterns affect flooding and or landslides overall?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And so excessive precip create a lot of runoff, and that can create flooding and overland flow that can go into our rivers and cause flooding. We see that over our dams when we excessive precipitations, like say in the September, October timeframe, where we're flooding our over the dams and then into our in our creeks. But what we did see, and that can increase the chances of landslides, along with some other effects that we're working with our partners to learn more about. It takes more than just precipitation or heavy precipitation to cause these events. There's some soil saturation that we're working with our partners to figure out what those triggering effects are, so we can learn more about it to be able to, we can message that to the public so then they know when to take action.
Okay, great, thank you. I understand that you brought a weather station. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what will that do?
Yeah, so as you can see from the variety of precipitation values that we see from all these different, we were able to bring a station in here that's going to be measuring temperature and precipitation right around the slide site, so then we can get a handle on how much precipitation is falling for future events, and then also just monitoring the activity around the slide site itself. And it should be up and running here shortly, and we hope to have it up before the weekend, as we do have another weather event coming in for this weekend. And when that does come online, we will make sure that you all know where to access that information, along with the other precipitation information that we have around the region.
You mentioned briefly we're expecting a weather event this weekend. Can you talk a little bit about how much weather we're expecting this weekend, what that might look like for us?
Yeah, we're still getting a better feel for it, but there is going to be another atmospheric river is going to be moving into the region Friday into Saturday, and we're watching that very closely to see what those rain amounts are and how close that's all, and then any other activity that we could see around the slide area, and then any other type of flooding that we could see. We're working with our partners to see if there's any risk of any. By this time, it's too unknown right now to see what those conditions will lead up to, but we are working with our partners and just making sure that we're keeping an eye on this weather system, make sure that when we have better confidence on the amounts, that we get that information out to the community, so then they can continue to prepare for any impacts that may take place.
Great. Another question just to pick up on, is there a website? What's a good source for our citizens to monitor the weather and what's coming up in the next week? What's the best source that you would recommend?
I recommend everyone to go to the National Weather Service webpage, and we can provide that on the, I think, I'll have a public information for, they can provide that information, but it's weather.gov/Juno. And that's the Weather Service Forecast Office. And we're here 24/7, 7 days a week. We have a whole host of meteorologists looking at the weather all the time and trying to provide it all the time.
Okay, great. We will get that link added to our website. For those who don't know, we did create an individual page on the borough website that's dedicated to the 3rd Avenue landslide. So if you go to the borough website, kgbak.us, there you can click on that, and that will take you to the landing page for the landslide page, and then you'll just click one more, you'll see an abundance of resources there, and we will add that link to it.
Great.
So one more weather-related question for your team. We know we'll be getting a lot of rain this fall, like we do every year. How will that affect the slide area and the areas around it?
I'll take that question. Yeah, we'll keep getting fall storms. Like Erin said, we've got another one coming this weekend. And then, in the fall time, we often get storms every other day. So we'll be monitoring that. And while we're here deployed in town, we'll be giving that information to the EOC. But the public can view it on weather.gov/Juno. And then as far as the slide area itself, of course, the rain's going to affect that in some way, water coming down, but that's normal. And the geologists are monitoring that.
Okay, so thank you for that is it normal for us to, we'll see water coming down. Will it be normal for us to see other debris coming down from the main slide area as well?
Yeah, I would say small,
Okay.
in a small way. But outside of the slide area, I think the probably expand on that more. If people are seeing things like brown water or unusual movement that they're not used to seeing, that to alert the community officials.
Okay. So if we see the brown water things in the slide area itself, probably to be expected, probably, but around that and away from that, the water should be clear for the most part.
Sure.
All right, great. Anything else to add before we move on to our Department of Transportation folks?
I'll just add one thing with the activity around the site into it from any strong winds throughout these fall storms that Nicole was mentioning. So again, that's normal. We've seen this in other landslide events in Haines, and you have this big disturbed area, and then you have these winds that can knock these looser trees into the slide area. And so that will because they're undermining those edges of the slide area, but nothing to be concerned about. But again, if you're seeing any other unusual things around your house, and if you don't feel unsafe, then take your own personal actions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll turn to the Transportation and Public Facilities. We have Travis Eckhoff, who's the Regional Materials Engineer. Thanks, Travis, for being here. Your team of geologists has been pretty busy the past couple of days, and you've brought a lot of equipment with you. What has your involvement been?
Sure, that's a great question. So after the landslide event, the State Emergency Operations Center requested that the Department of Transportation mobilize our geohazard response team. The geohazard response team consists of geologists and engineers and really highly skilled drone pilots. And our focus during any landslide response is evaluating slope stability in the affected areas so that we can ensure crews can work safely in those areas. The team mobilized to Ketchikan Tuesday morning. We brought with us a mountain of equipment, tend to always do, and gear, including drones, Starlink, survey equipment, FirstNet compact rapidly deployable cell towers, which helps us communicate with folks around the state. And we use a combination of field observations, weather forecast information from the National Weather Service, precipitation data, and a lot of drone technology to really monitor the slope conditions during operations. Our geologists, as soon as they were on site, they performed a helicopter overflight of the 3rd Avenue landslide. And we've traversed the landslide multiple times by foot. And we do that so that we can observe the rock, soil, and drainages within the landslide area and the area adjacent to it. And that helps us understand really what the quantity of material remaining in the landslide is, how that material will react to precipitation, and how it could impact those operations of debris clearing. And as service folks had mentioned, precipitation data is really critical to our operations. We monitor rainfall intensity, rainfall duration as things are happening, and we use that information to basically reevaluate as we're going in real time. The precipitation data is critical to everything that we do. We have a small air force of drones that we like to deploy on these events. And the drones help us collect invaluable data in areas that are either inaccessible because they're too hazardous to send people up to, or there's trees falling in areas, and they really get a firsthand perspective on the conditions within that landslide. We've collected extensive imagery of the landslide, and we've also collected some imagery of the Copper Ridge landslides. We use those images to create maps, and 3D geologists and engineers can analyze in real time. So once we have that data, we can all sit in front of a computer screen and we can say, hey, this is an area that we should focus on, or hey, an area that we need to worry about. And all of this information we just compile and use to make sure that our crews can operate safely in those areas.
Thank you. I believe that we have a large amount of your photos that have been uploaded. There's a Flickr account that's been created with your photos, drone photos, some videos, and there's a link on our website to that Flickr account. So if citizens have not taken advantage of looking at those photos yet, there's some really great material there. As we do media releases, we try to share photos. We've just been so busy, we haven't been able to many of them, but if you go onto the borough website and click the link, it's on the right-hand side of the land, there is a link to the Flickr account with all of those drone photos, and those are photos that have been taken in the past couple of days, so for your good work. So we'll turn to Alaska Department of Natural Resources. And it's Mort Larson. He is geologist, landslide hazards program manager. And can you tell us a little bit about your program, and then I'll ask some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Mort Larson with DNR, Division of Geological and Geophysical Surveys. And at DNR, at DGGS, is a fairly new program. It's only 2 years old, so this program is new, and it's definitely something that needed in the state. So new program, but I really want to kind of emphasize the importance behind partnerships with the program growing. USGS, Alaska Department of DOT, National Weather Service, Alaska Earthquake Center Service. And what that inclines is that you have multiple people in those entities, geologists, engineers, GIS specialists, meteorologists, soil scientists, that have a driving passion to understand landslides. So it's a team effort for us to really understand the dynamics with landslides, and it's very complicated. And I know I can speak in volumes for most of us that we have a passion for that information, that we want to be able to get this information to people that make decisions, and people that are in harm, that we can give them the critical information that we do. So as this program's growing, you can see we're growing communities, but building these partnerships and showing the importance behind it.
Great, thank you. A common question that we received in our survey was really about the definition of a landslide, and how is it different from a mudslide or a rock slide? And then what are some causes of those slides?
Yeah, great question. Landslide is a kind of a general term, and when you say mudslide or rock fall, those are types of landslides. So a landslide comes in many different flavors, and it really kind of depends on two really critical things is the kinematics, the motion of the landslide, what it does. And the other piece is the type of material that's involved with the landslide, talking mud, soil, rocks, and debris. So then once we can categorize those, we can look at like, okay, this is a deep-seated landslide, a rotational landslide, a debris flow, a debris avalanche, a rock fall and topple. So now what are the kinematics on that? So like a difference, say, between a mudslide flow in there also compared to, I think you said rock slide. So mudslide, debris flows, these things, they flow a long ways, right? They get fluid, they encompass a bunch of different types of material, debris, woody debris, sand, soil, saturated soils, even rock debris. And these things flow out a tremendous long ways, right? Whereas a rock slide or a topple, those things just are contained within a certain area, that you don't see them flow out a long ways because they're not mobile like what you would see in a mudslide or a debris flow. So that's how we can identify the difference. But we know kind of its kinematics, again, the motion that it moves on, and the material that's involved with that, we can start categorizing the type of landslide it is. So in the second question, you said, what are some of the triggers? Oversaturated soils. We get soils, and once they get oversaturated, they lose their weakness, and they can lose, you can get porosity increases, and these things fail. So oversaturation, we see these intense rainfalls that oversaturate slopes, and they cause failure on that. The other thing is earthquakes, shaking earthquakes. Anything that's unstable, we've seen those through historical earthquakes that they can stabilize slopes. And some of these slopes may be pretty close to failure, but they just need that little extra shake, and earthquakes is one of them as well. Another one is rising groundwater. we see groundwater instantly rise. It can oversaturate slopes that may be close to failing. So that's something that we always kind of keep an eye on with some of these drainages or creeks or something if we see groundwater elevating. And I think the biggest one, being a geologist, is the geology type, right? What type of soil we're looking at, what type of weather bedrock. These are all factors that kind of play in to that system. So.
Right. This was another question that was pretty common. Several people had questions related to the number of landslides we've seen recently in Southeast Alaska. We've experienced multiple similar disasters in recent years. What is being done across Southeast to raise awareness and mitigate these events?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, just, these events, they hit hard, to everybody. They impact communities. They impact everything on that. So the 2015 Sitka landslide, the 2020 Haynes landslide, the 2023 Wrangell landslide, and the recent landslide, looking at these landslides that are devastating and catastrophic, that impact and affect communities. So something that we've been working on in this short time, but it's growing. And again, the reason why it's growing is because of this partnership that we're establishing with multiple entities is to educate these local communities of information about landslide awareness, but also bringing to light like some of the services that we can provide there at DGGS that we currently have going on with the Haynes and Wrangell, is to do some landslide inventory mapping. And also on top of that, we do landslide susceptibility mapping. We identify areas potentially that could be susceptible for landslides. And it's good information. But what this does is it gives city planners, emergency responders, information that they need to be able to send messages out to folks. And then they can plan on top of that. So that's what we're working on. But we noticed, especially here in Southeast, I think it's a whole Alaska thing, but in Southeast, is the data is sparse. We know that more data needs to be collected, and there's some low-hanging fruit data that we can collect. We need better geologic mapping. We need more detailed geological mapping to know what type of soil types are out there in bedrock. The other thing is LiDAR acquisition, and what LiDAR acquisition is a remote sensing capabilities that we can look at the surface and be able to map things out. So we know that those things are a key piece. The other thing that we're working on deliberately with the USGS, National Weather Service, and DOT is expanding our weather station network in Southeast, because we know when these systems come in, we know that there's microclimates that impact communities. So we understand that these high elevation weather stations are a very important piece for that. So we're working on with these communities, and we're expanding that out and reaching out to these communities with these services as we move on.
Right.